Oh, so I have to comment on the case up in New York, with the home buyer that ended up going ahead and they literally they hired a squatter, all right, to go ahead and squat in the home that they wanted to buy, and they hired the squatter to make it inconvenient to purchase the home, move into the home, anything like that. You know, pretty much think of kind of the equivalent of waiting in line. Like when you have somebody going ahead and waiting in line for you, like they're doing a purchase for you. Like say for example, like Black Friday when they have the doorbuster deals, you know, and you get paid to sit in the store, and save the person's spot in line. They give you the money, you go ahead and you buy what it is that they, put a reservation for with the doorbuster, and you go ahead and buy it, and you continue, you wait and give the person their product, and ultimately what you're getting paid for is basically you are getting paid to go wait at that line, you know, so that way that the person can celebrate the holidays with their family and not have to worry about, the consumeristic factor that comes along with the holidays. All right. Now, I could tell you right now, the home purchasers, they're making a dumb fucking mistake going ahead and poking and prodding that squatter. Because keep in mind, they went to go frame that squatter, being like, "Stay here. You don't know what you're doing. What we're asking you to do is illegal, but we're asking you to squat in this house to drive the price, the purchasing price of this home down. All right." And for saving us, because keep in mind, in this case, they saved the home purchaser almost $700,000. And in exchange, he was supposed to get paid $140,000. Well, needless to say, the home purchaser, after the squatter was successful at driving the price down, is now trying to say, "Oh no, we're not paying you for squatting here, despite the fact that we hired you to squat here. So now, we're gonna set the proceedings and everything to get you evicted." Now, the funny thing is, the home purchasers, they clearly didn't think this whole situation through beforehand, or check the legalities, or don't care about the legalities because they think that this squatter is going to be the one doing their prison time for them. All right? People get pretty cocky and confess their crimes when they think they've got a scapegoat or a fall guy set up. They start to think they're untouchable. But, so, the legalities behind this whole situation. Because remember, this contract is illegal as hell. It would be considered unconscionable. So, as far as, going ahead and prosecuting the squatter, no, there would be tenants' protections that would actually protect the squatter because of the factor of, ultimately, this was a deceptive maneuvering. All right, this would be considered a deceptive practices lawsuit. So, ultimately, because of the factor of getting the price reduced on the house by almost $700,000, that $700,000 would be considered stolen equity. All right, so that $700,000 would be considered the estimation of the stolen property. All right, so keep in mind, the courts would have to justify in an attempt to rule with the home purchasers. They would have to justify that there would be some circumstance that would be considered conscionable to not only evict the squatter, but also to not pay the squatter. Because keep in mind, when they ended up putting, like setting up that contract with the squatter with the agreement of their job was to get the price reduced on the house, which the squatter was successful on, which means that the squatter has successfully executed the job that they were hired for. All right, which means that there was a employer-employee contract, despite the technicalities of whether they were considered a contractor, whether they were considered an employee. Regardless, this still falls under a workers' rights, complaint. You would think it would end up falling under a domestic dispute. But ultimately, it actually falls under workers' rights because technically that squatter, when entering that contract with the home purchaser, that home purchaser going ahead and hiring that squatter, they didn't even take on a tenant-landlord relationship. If anything, what they ended up taking on was an employee-employer relationship. Now, ultimately, the employee would have to be able to trust that the employer is not doing anything illegal or unconscionable, that the employee doesn't know about. But ultimately, when it comes to this contract, the home purchaser is going to, and the home purchaser's legal team, which keep in mind, the home purchaser also owns 3 other homes in that area, while the squatter does not have anywhere to live whatsoever. The home purchaser would have to go ahead and argue why not paying for services rendered, because the squatter successfully got the purchasing price lowered. So these services were rendered. That's not getting paid for nothing. That's getting paid for saving somebody almost $700,000. And keep in mind, the home's value, the purchasing price, was originally $2.9 million. And they ended up getting it for $2 million. So, obviously, if they purchased a house for $2 million and they got 3 other homes, I don't feel bad for the home purchaser. They're trying to set up a whole real estate empire, quite obviously. And ultimately, starting off with tactics like that, they are going to fail. They're not going to fail upward. They are going to just fail. All right? But deceptive practices, tortious interference, because keep in mind, now, the real estate brokerage, they're going to have all rights to go ahead and reach out to the squatter and be like, hey, we'll go ahead and put you up, all right? Honestly, you want to work for us? Ultimately, what they did was illegal. It's considered tortious interference of contract. So, because of the fact that they hired you to undercut us, all right, they ended up stealing almost $700,000 worth of equity, using you as the tool to commit the crime. So, we're not going to go ahead and prosecute against you. What you do, we will hire you. And in exchange for you helping us, we will make sure that you have your home that nobody could take you out of, and give the squatter a cheap home, and tell them, be like, the only thing you have to do, you have to testify on our behalf. Because I understand real estate gets a bad name, and people do some shitty things in, the industry. So, if you help us do what we can to get that equity back, because obviously with them paying $2 million, they could afford to fucking, part with more of their money. I mean, they undercut us. They went to not pay you at all. So in their eyes, they're justified trying to use you for slave labor. So, testify for us. In exchange, we'll make sure you don't have to worry about any more eviction proceedings, because by the time we're done with this whole situation, we'll have recouped back the equity back that we lost because of the deceptive practices used to obtain property under false pretenses, and you'll have a place to live that nobody can kick you out of because it'll be yours flat out. No mortgage, no lien, nothing. Like, you will not have to pay rent again. So that means on a monthly basis, whatever you end up getting in and making, besides what you pay in utilities and everything, is all going to be profit for you. At that point, I would worry as the home purchaser, because what they're talking about, the equivalent of getting away with, is like, let's say, for example, I went to a garage sale, right? And the garage sale has a sign, because you know how apparently, what a sign says has to be listened to, ultimately it could end up being the difference between life and death and all that. Well, signs also count as legally enforceable, all right? So, like, let's say somebody has a garage sale, or somebody has an estate sale, and they have a label maker, all right? And they say, oh, the sign says, everything with a sticker is for sale at the marked price. All right? So you end up coming in with your own label maker, all right? And you take a label, the label maker, and you make a label that says $1. And you take the label off, and you go ahead and put that label on the side of the person's house. And then take a picture of the sign saying everything with the label, and a marked price is for sale. And then you take a picture with the sticker on the side of the house being like, oh, look, I'm buying a house for $1. But you go ahead and you ask, and so that way you make sure that the sale goes through. Instead of asking any of the adults at the garage sale, you go ahead and you approach the kid that's like 5-6 years old, that they don't have no concept of money. And you end up saying, hey, I'll give you $1 for this house. All right? Now, keep in mind, if they got like a dollhouse, at this garage sale and everything, in the kid's mind, they think that, you're offering them $1 for a dollhouse, but you were actually offering $1 for, their place of living, condemning them to homelessness. I have no idea how the home purchaser thinks that they're the good guy in the scenario, or how they think in court they're going to be able to win now that not only the realtor but also the bank and now the squatter all have legal cause for action. Like, they all can simultaneously work together and just dogpile the home purchaser and be like, no, you don't need a home. Your home's prison.